When poverty was a blessing, you're probably thinking, hey? Well, let me explain. In my early years here, I was brought up in extreme poverty, incredibly poor. I now believe it was done on purpose as some form of training, done by my mother. But things were so tough at certain points we didn't even have enough food, okay? That's how tough they were. We certainly didn't have a TV for most of the time, which is where the blessing lies, because through that hardship, not only did I learn to overcome problems, pitfalls and hurdles from a very young age, but I also had the benefit I wasn't being brainwashed by a television from a very early age. Occasionally, as a so-called treat, my grandparents would hire in a television over the school holidays. Even then, I barely watched it. This realm was my playground and my educator, not the television. And even when I did entertain the television, because my fundamentals and I was grounded in real experience, the physical world, when I did finally sit down and watch television, I questioned all of it. All of it. You watch the adverts, they just make ridiculous claims. You watch the news, they sit there, say things in such a matter of fact. And yet when you question it, it just falls flat on its face in most instances. Unless, of course, what they're telling you suits the narrative. The point I'm getting at, my hardship was a blessing. Because one, I didn't fall for the bullshit because of the brainwashing wasn't there via the TV. Two, I had a very savvy mother. And three, those hard years gave me the skills to survive and overcome hurdles. Like I said, from a very early age, those skills have served me well. Don't get me wrong, the method and processes in which I went through weren't necessarily the safest. Prime example, my playground was a place full of tower blocks, and a lot of us, for dares, would hang off. I'd do pull-ups off the top of a tower block, absolutely no problem. Again, an incredibly dangerous thing to do, but incredibly empowering, because you'd have to address fear. Fear is a natural mechanism, which essentially is adrenaline, which is the body's natural response to what you perceive as a dangerous situation. So I started at an early age addressing my own feelings, whether it be fear, anxiety, whatever the situation was. Again, I don't think I would have gone inwards and addressed these fears, the adrenaline, and looked at myself if I was sat watching the television. I learned more about myself by going out in the real world and interacting with it, admittedly putting myself in some dangerous situations at points in time. But because of that, I got to understand myself a lot better. There was definite gaps that needed filling in, don't get me wrong. The journey of time and the directions I chose to take helped fill in those gaps. But back in those early days, we were all skint, we had nothing. The drug of choice was adrenaline. It was free. The only hitch was it came with a bit of danger, but we loved it. But the point I'm getting at, having hardship under the right situation can be an actual gift. It can give you a skill set. It can make you address things within yourself. It can give you the understanding and the skills to overcome problems, pitfalls and hurdles, whether it be things that are placed in front of you or things you need to address within yourself. Again, I don't ever recall seeing something on the television that did that. In fact, as we all know, the television does exactly the opposite. So like I say, poverty, in my instance, my case, and for a lot of us back then on the council estate, poverty was a blessing. Because of it, it didn't make us susceptible to the propaganda and the brainwashing. We learnt in the real physical world, first and foremost. And then when we did have the so-called luxury of the television, because of our direct experience, we could see the bullshit coming. Have a good one, everyone.